this lesson, we'll cover adding plumbing fixtures. Now, plumbing fixtures are a really important part of your plumbing design. Plumbing fixtures typically are added by the architect, so they may already exist. So your question that you may have is, do you use the plumbing fixture by the architect, or do you create a new plumbing fixture used for MEP? You could use either or. If you decide to use the architect's plumbing fixture, use the copy monitor method to make sure it's up to date and it's shared with you. However, you could use an MEP fixture and replace the architect's plumbing fixture that they had used. We're going to use the MEP plumbing fixture in this lesson. So looking at my actual model on the screen, I see I have a bathroom layout. I have piping for waste lines. I have piping for supply lines for the sinks, lavatories. Now, looking at the actual layout, I see I have one water closet missing in the lower left. We're going to add that water closet as an example of how to add a plumbing fixture. So to add plumbing fixtures, let's go to your Systems tab on the ribbon. On the Systems tab in the Plumbing and Piping panel, click Plumbing Fixture. Now over on the left, in the Properties area, you have a drop down to choose other plumbing fixtures that are currently loaded in this Revit project. If the one you want is in here, you can actually load the family in. The one we're going to use, though, in this example is the water closet flush valve wall mounted. Now, I could start to place this fixture from this view, but this is actually a wall-mounted fixture, and I can see that in the Properties box. So it's probably best to display it and place it in an elevation view or section view. So we already have an elevation view created underneath plumbing in my view area. In the project browser area below, scroll down to plumbing and then double-click elevation 1A. This will open the elevation of that bathroom. We can see the sinks, the supply line for the sinks, and we can see the actual waste lines for the lavatories, or the water closets as well. And we want to add the other water closet to the very right. To do that, let's go back and click Plumbing Fixture again on your ribbon. Verify the water closet flush valve wall mounted public 6.1 meters per foot is actually selected. And then move your mouse onto your screen and you'll see once you move over the wall, the plumbing fixture appears. Zoom in and verify that it is aligned on the actual supply and waste lines. When it's aligned, left click. That will actually place the fixture mounted to the wall and in line with the supply and water waste line. And again, you can continue to actually place more fixtures in this view. Click Modify in the upper left to end the command. Now let's go back to that floor plan view. So underneath plumbing, double-click Floor Plan Toilet Room. And you'll actually see we've added this additional water closet to our layout. And you can also add additional sinks, additional elements, whether that be other plumbing fixtures in this bathroom or throughout your actual layout. So as a review, what we learned in this lesson was how to add plumbing fixtures. We looked at where to launch the plumbing fixture tool from, basically on the Systems tab of your ribbon, and then we selected the actual plumbing fixture we wanted to apply. But we noted that the plumbing fixture we're applying, in this case the water closet, was a wall-mounted fixture. Therefore, it was best to place this from an elevation view. We placed that on the elevation view, attaching it to the wall, and aligning to our water lines and piping lines. In this lesson, we'll cover modifying attributes of plumbing fixtures. So if you wanted to display or change your plumbing fixture attributes, we can look at the properties. Typically what you want to do, though, when you're placing your plumbing fixtures, you want to make sure they belong to a type or even a subtype. That way you can group those together and apply all the information across all of those plumbing fixtures that belong to that type. For example, if I click on one of the water closets in my Revit model, I see on the left in the property area, it's actually the water closet flush valve wall-mounted public 6.1 meters per feet. Below that are the actual values for how it's constrained, the flow pressure, mechanical information, and then identity and marks along with phasing and other information of where it's placed and how it'll show up in my schematics or my schedules later on. However, I want to look at the type, so I can click Edit Type above this information. This will display the specific type of water closet, in this case the public 6.1 LPF. Now I could duplicate this if I wanted to modify something. If you do want to modify something, it's best to duplicate it though. I would recommend not changing the default values of the preset data, because if you were to upgrade or reload, you'll lose or potentially lose the modifications you make. So looking at this information, I see I have a default location of the elevation of where it's placed above the finished floor, the level it's bound to. The materials are set by category, but I can override those. I have my water flow rates under mechanical, and I can modify those as well if need be. Likewise with dimensions, and then all of the attributes for the identity of who produced this, the type of mark, the description, the company website, even cost. Again, if I wanted to create a duplicate of this because I wanted to modify values, I can just simply click the duplicate button in the upper right, give it a new name, change my values, and then I can use that actual feature, in this case, the plumbing fixture, in my Revit assembly. Go ahead and click OK. Now, other options you have are moving and flipping the orientation of the actual plumbing symbol. So looking at the actual plumbing symbol in this case, the toilet fixture, water closet, I have the flip work plane, which will flip the orientation. I also have the drag handle, will allow me to drag. But keep in mind, this is a wall-mounted fixture, so it has to stay bound or tied to the wall or plane it's associated to. Go ahead and click anywhere in the background to deselect. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at modifying plumbing fixtures. We looked at displaying the properties of a plumbing fixture and being able to edit those properties of the plumbing fixture. We also talked about plumbing fixture types and the importance of having a type because you can actually group a lot of different elements together under that type. Therefore, if a change needs to be made, it can be applied across all of the plumbing fixtures that belong to that type. We viewed types, but we talked about modifying type values, stating it's best to duplicate that type if you wanted to make a modification to one of the values or parameters within that type. Lastly, we looked at the actual plumbing fixture symbol itself and the ability to move that fixture based on the drag handle dimension and also flip the plane of its orientation. In this lesson, we'll discuss plumbing systems. So up to this point, we've added fixtures, we looked at piping, and all the other various elements that would go into a piping system. However, looking at the model on your screen, we actually have a layout of a bathroom. In that bathroom, we have plumbing fixtures. Those plumbing fixtures do have piping systems, in this case, the hot and cold water supply pipe system, supplying the water to the actual sinks. But we also have waste lines, removing the water and waste from each of the actual water closets that are listed or shown in my actual model. Those waste lines belong to a plumbing system. So before we start to add a lot of detail to a new model, we want to make sure we define our systems. In this case, we would add a plumbing system. Now, the importance of a plumbing system is that it's the glue that holds all of these elements together within that plumbing system. So to create a plumbing system, the first thing I would need is to create a symbol or a plumbing fixture or fixtures. Then after I've created those fixtures, I could actually select those. If they currently do not belong to a system, I can add those to a system. So to see this information, we'll want to view it in the system browser. To view the system browser, let's go to the View tab on your ribbon, then all the way to the right, click the User Interface drop-down and choose System Browser. Verify systems are set for the view and change the discipline to piping. Now underneath piping, you'll actually see 6 systems. The system that is visible on my screen is the sanitary system. And if I expand that, I can actually click on it and it will highlight all of the components and the system pipes that belong to this plumbing system. Now note One of the actual water closets, the one in the lower left, does not belong to this system. It is actually located under the unassigned category. So anything you add that's not assigned to any system will always be placed in the unassigned system category. And so that's what I see in the lower left when I highlight it. So I'm going to use this as an example of how I could potentially create a new piping, or in this case, plumbing system. So I'm going to click, first of all, in the background to deselect. Now let's click on that water closet in the lower left. Just go ahead and click on it once, it'll highlight. All the way in the upper right of your ribbon, you'll see Create Systems, and it's indicating piping. This is because it's currently unassigned to a current system, and it's allowing me to create a system from it. So if I click Piping right now, it's going to ask me, well, what type of system do you want to create? Well, it understands that it's a sanitary system, or it also could be a cold water system for the supply. And I can also name the system. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just showing an example of how I could do this. The reason I'm not going to do it is because this system already exists that I would want to connect this water closet to. So let's just go ahead and click Cancel. Now, the system that I want to add this water closet to is the Sanitary 1 system. So in the system browser on the right, go ahead and select Sanitary 1. It'll highlight all of the elements that currently belong to that system. And with that system highlighted on your ribbon, click Edit System. When you click on Edit System, the ribbon will change and it'll ask you now several things that you can do. One is add things to system. Anything emphasized in a dark, bold, or line type is currently added to the system. 10 elements right now. However, anything grayed out is not added to the system. So in this instance here, I want to add this additional water closet to the system. So I'm simply going to mouse over this water closet, left click on it, and it now becomes emphasized or in more bold print or line, and it's now added to the system. And I see the number of elements in the system goes up. To save this, just click Finish Editing System. That element is now added to the water closet system, in this case the Sanitary 1 system, and if you highlight it in the system browser, you'll see it highlights in your Revit model. Go ahead and click anywhere in the background. So as a review, in this lesson, we covered plumbing systems. We looked at what a plumbing system is, basically the glue that holds everything together, and we talked about how to create a plumbing system, basically creating a plumbing fixture or another plumbing fixture, and selecting those fixtures, and if they do not belong to a system, I can create a piping system, or in this case, a plumbing system from them. However, if a plumbing system exists, I can edit that plumbing system and add new plumbing fixtures to that current system. All of this can be viewed in the system browser. In this lesson, we'll cover generating pipe layouts. Now, the model we're looking at for this lesson is a typical restroom plumbing layout. We have supply lines, hot and cold water indicated by the red and blue lines, and we have waste lines, sanitary lines, indicated by the yellow pipes. We're going to focus on the sanitary lines for this lesson. Typically, your plumbing sanitary lines will have slope. Now, these plumbing systems can be generated in two manners. One, automatically, where you simply select the plumbing fixtures and pipes and points within pipe fittings, and let Revit actually decide the best route from point to point of how those plumbing lines and segments should be routed. Or you could do it manually by clicking the points from pipe fitting to fitting or from fixture to fixture. Typically, if slope is involved, specifically with your plumbing sanitary lines, it's a lot easier if you actually model this manually. Looking at the model on our screen, if you see thick lines, and the same true for any other lesson you look at, if the lines are thick within your model, you can do a multitude of things. One is you could, if you want, change the scale. Or two, you could actually just change the mode to include thin lines instead of thick lines. To do that, move your mouse all the way to the top of the ribbon on the shortcut bar and click Thin Lines. That will de-emphasize all of the thick lines through the visual perspective of what you're looking at. It doesn't change the scale, and it doesn't change how it's printed. It's only visually. Now, looking at this plumbing layout, specifically the sanitary line, I see there are two water closets that aren't connected to the actual plumbing line. And I'll go ahead and zoom in to actually look at that. And I can see between the two water closets, we have some fittings. So we need to route a pipe segment from the fitting to the segment on the right. And what I'll do next is I'll switch to a 3D view to see what these fittings look like between the two water closets. So in the project browser on the lower left, move your mouse to the plumbing section of the views, and then double-click 3D View Toilet Room. Here you can actually see there's a T fitting with a pipe connected to an elbow. We need to route a new pipe from the elbow to the pipe segment on the right. Now at this point we have two views that were open, the plan view and the 3D view. Some people like to work with multiple views. It's called tiling. If you want to tile your screen right now, go to the View tab, then all the way to the right in the Windows panel, click Tile Windows. This will tile the open windows. I only had two, so it just tiled two, but if I had four, it would tile four. Now I'm going to work mostly in the 2D plan view. And I'm going to zoom in around the fittings between the water closets. Now at this point, I could route a pipe using the pipe tool, or you could route a pipe automatically from a fitting. We're going to do the latter. We're going to route a pipe from a fitting. So to do that, I need to first select the elbow in the view. I'm going to do this in the 2D view. Now, if you're having trouble selecting something, specifically if you're looking at a realistic view or a shaded view, you may want to change the wireframe. To do that, I'll click the indicator on the bottom and change this from shaded to wireframe. This gives me more detail to select. And then I'll mouse over the outside edge of the pipe fitting, click, and I should have selected the elbow. To verify, I can see this in the 3D view. Now with the elbow selected, I'm going to right-click on the rightmost drag handle. When you right-click on the rightmost drag handle, a menu appears, and in the menu, you'll see an option for Draw Pipe. Click Draw Pipe. This will start to draw a pipe segment from that elbow. Now it should pick up the diameter, but just verify it on the options bar. It's 100 millimeters. Now all I have to do is drag my mouse to the right, pulling the pipe over to the existing segment. Now I'm rolling my mouse to zoom out, and I'm holding the wheel on the mouse to pan. And I'll drag the segment to the center line of the existing pipe, and then left-click to draw the segment and a T connecting those two together. The one thing I didn't mention was the slope. If I look at the ribbon right now on the very right, I have slope down selected, and I have slope value of 1% selected. So there's a 1% drop in the actual slope. You can also do slope up, or depending on what you're doing, you may need to ignore the slope if you just want to connect from point to point. So you could use that option as well. I'm done routing for right now, so click Modify in the upper left. Now, if I look at the T that was added, you may say, well, that T doesn't look like the other T's that are currently in this piping system. Correct. The reason for that is the current routing settings for this pipe system for the T aren't set to the T's that you see above. Let's undo what we did first, and then we'll change the setting. So to undo this, just go up to the shortcut toolbar on the very top, click Undo once, or if you click the Undo drop-down, click Pipe. That'll undo the pipe segment we just did, including the T connection. Now, let's verify what T we want. So I'm going to pan over in my actual plan view, click on the correct T, and make a note of what it is. Look at the Properties box on the left. It's an MT Sanitary PVC Schedule 40 Standard T. Click anywhere in the background to deselect the T. Now, to change the pipe routing, click on one of the pipe segments. With the pipe segment selected, in the Properties area, click Edit Type. When the Edit Type Properties window appears, to the right of Routing Preferences, click Edit. This is where all of the settings are set for what happens when you route pipe. The elbows, the junctions, the crossing, the transitions, all is set here for the automation of adding those fittings. Now the fitting I need to change is the junction fitting. Right now it's just set to an MT generic standard, but if you click it, and click the drop-down, you'll see below that setting is the PVC Schedule 40 T connector. Select it, then click OK. Click OK again. Click anywhere in the background to deselect the pipe. Now let's go back to that elbow again. Select it. Right-click on the rightmost T. Click Draw Pipe. Now, at this point, let's verify on the rivet on the top that slope down is selected and a slope value of 1% is set. Again, mouse over to the right as you drag your pipe and snap it to the center line of your pipe segment on the right. Doing so will again draw the pipe segment, but this time it draws the correct T. Click Modify in the upper left to end the function. So as a review, what we covered in this lesson was generating pipe layouts, specifically for waste sanitary lines that include slope. We talked about the different methods to create these piping systems, either automatically or manually, and discussed the probability that you'll want to manually model and create piping systems that contain slope, such as sanitary lines, because it's easier to control those slope values. We also talked about looking at multiple windows, tiling these views so you could look at two different views of the same thing once. We routed pipes from an existing fitting by right-clicking on the drag handle and then choosing Add Pipe. And we also looked at the pipe routing settings, where we could control what type of T's, what type of elbows, or what type of pipes are actually being applied to our pipe system as we route our pipes.